Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Jihan Rahmi Sumantri, and in this change today, I will explain more about our presentation of my research or my article that I have been doing for this semester in quantitative research. It talks about the effect of student self-esteem on their speaking ability. Before we begin the presentation, there will be 4 points that we'll talk about in this presentation. The first is background, the second is research question, and the third is literature review, and the fourth is research methodology. And we will begin the presentation. We will talk about the background of this article. It will main talk about self-esteem and speaking because they are the two main point in this article. Speaking is an important skill in learning, and through speaking we can communicate. They regard speaking as the most important skill they can require and they can acquire, and assess their progress in terms of their accomplishment in spoken communication. On the contrary, for most people, speaking is the most difficult part when they learn a foreign language. We live in Indonesia where English language as the foreign language is not a second language or either the mother or language. So for some people will find it hard because uh, either they didn't receive the proper lesson English or they just their self esteem is not really high depending on the other language, for example bahasa. And because of that, maybe for some people it's really hard to speak because they think that it's really scared for them to make a mistake like a grammatical error or some vocabulary error or anything. As this issue and rise up and happen almost on every person, especially we will focus on student. Every student, this issue deserves to research to find the effect of self-esteem on their speaking ability. And the mainly focus on this research or on this article is, are the students' self-esteem affect on their speaking ability? That the main point or main focus that we have to find out, we have to investigate through this article or research. Before we move to a deeper understanding about self-esteem and speaking, we have to know first what is self-esteem and what is speaking. Self-esteem is a central construct in clinical development, personality, and social psychology. In psychology, the term of self-esteem is used to describe a person's overall sense of self-worth or personal value. In other words, how much you appreciate and like yourself. It involves a variety of beliefs about yourself, such as appraisal of your own appearance, belief, emotion, and behavior. Self-esteem as one important factor of human affective domain has been found to play an extremely important role in second language acquisition or SLA. In this line, Brown states that no successful cognitive or affective activity can be carried out with some degree of self-esteem, self-confidence, and self-efficacy, belief in your own capability to successfully perform that activity. So in other words, self-esteem is really an important part of our life where we need it in, yeah, but some people didn't realize that self-esteem is really important. Yeah, maybe they just do it, but they forgot about their self-esteem. And speaking speaking is one of the important skill that we use to communicate and to understand each other in our daily activities. Furthermore, speaking is a key to communicate as an interactive process of developing meaning that involve producing, receiving, and processing information. We are as a human being, we have to speak, and speaking is one of a tool that we can use to communicate with each other with as a human being, because there's no other tools that we can use besides speaking in any language, or in any language that we can use. Is one of the important skill that we can survive in our life, because as a tool, speaking play a big role in our communication, that we can connect to other people through speaking. And in this research, the researcher will use data collection and before we move to data collection, we have to know the aim of the research first. The aim of this research is to investigate the effect of student self-esteem on their speaking ability. And in this research, the researcher will use ex post facto design, because according to Hatch and Farhadi in Satyadi, state that ex post facto design is often used when the researcher doesn't have a control over the selection and manipulation of the independent variable. And the population that the researcher will use, or a sample, is a senior high school student of SMA Negeri 7 Tasikmalaya. The reason why the researcher chose this population is because it considered the suburban area where many people didn't consider, or didn't consider learning English seriously, or get a proper learning lesson English focus, where they can focus to English as the lesson that they can learn, or on a language that they can use. Or yes, after all, the English, they didn't really consider English as one of most important part. And for the data collection, the research procedure, the writer will conduct the research at the second year of the senior high school, and the writer will give the questionnaire tryout to 30 students of the second year, and using the questionnaire in the real test. The questionnaire is used to measure the student's self-esteem, and simulation technique is used to assess English speaking of ability of students. And for the questionnaire will be used to measure the student's self-esteem, as I've been speak before. And the test will use to determine the speaking ability of the population. And for the test, speaking ability of students adapted from student handbook based on the appropriate curriculum. The speaking test will consist of a role player game. There will be a role play as a journalist and a famous person, and a conduct interview stage. Between the population, the content will consist of asking, giving personal information. And for the data analysis, the data from speaking test and questionnaire are analyzed by using one-way ANOVA in order to investigate whether self-esteem has effect on students' speaking ability or not. Maybe that's all from me and for my presentation. I'm sorry if there's noise, or if there's some grammatical error, or some zone outs while I'm speaking or I'm explaining Meanwhile, this presentation, I'm sorry. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.